Hello, and welcome to the Cancer Journey podcast. I am Alicia.
And I am Sherry Ann.
So we're going to start with our PESH check-in. Sherry Ann, please start for us.
Okay, so physically 7.9, emotionally 8.7, spirit 9, hope 9.2. And my word for right now is hopeful. How about you?
Okay. Physically, I am a 7.75. Emotionally, I am a 7.5. Spiritually, an 8, and hope is 8.25, and my word is settling.
Okay, well, settle in, girl, because here we go.
So today we wanted to continue with our kind of perspective series that we have going on, and we're going to be focusing on caregivers today.
Yeah, I've been thinking about a lot of caregivers that I've talked to over the years. But I think that it's even more so right now. Like after COVID, a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
didn't get checked out. And so there's a lot more diagnoses. I mean, obviously, we hit the 200,000. No, the 2 million new diagnosis mark this year. And so there's just that many more caregivers. But I have like this really strong affinity towards caregivers. It's such a loving yet hard job.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And there's so much pressure on caregivers to be strong for their beloved, or to show up more than, or it's almost like when someone is diagnosed, their caregiver almost gets the same diagnosis in a way, because they
Mhm.
show up for them time and time again, especially if they're the primary caregiver and not just kind of on a team of caregivers for one person. There's a lot of pressure to hold, and no one signs up for cancer or any sort of very serious illness, and then no one necessarily waits their whole life to be a caregiver either in the same way. It's so much more than just, being a mom to someone, or being, um, or a kind of predefined role. It's different for every person, and they have to remain flexible in that role. And it's a really tough one that I think often gets skipped over just because we focus so much on the patient, which is not a bad thing at all. But the caregiver, their focus is also on the patient. And so sometimes their own self gets set aside.
Oh, absolutely. And like you said, they didn't sign up for that job. Although, it's almost like, okay, I'm the one here to provide this kind of support. And I have to say when I was diagnosed, I think it was the second cancer, we put together a share the care
Mm-hmm.
group, and I actually still have the book. I'm looking at it right now, and that was really important because I didn't have to. So we had a point person. We actually had 2 point people, and they kind of coordinated everything. And I think that that's really important, rather than being the designated primary caregiver, where you kind of
Mm-hmm.
feel like everything's on your shoulder. You got to coordinate, you got to show up, you've got to be emotional support, all of that. It's really
Yeah,
heavy,
it's really
and
heavy.
not everybody wants to do that or can
Mm-hmm.
do that.
Right. We don't all have the exact same strength, or even values that let us put our whole hearts into it. Some people do. Some people have all of this experience and all the tools, and they're like, okay, I'm ready for it. But and even the people who are ready kind of to hold that space, it can be really difficult to actually do it. And even if they're all capable and they've got this, they got their binder, they've got everyone's
Mhm.
phone numbers on speed dial, like whatever it is, it's still really hard to continue to put yourself first when you're the caregiver. And I think a lot of caregivers, um, they choose to not even look at themselves at all. You know, in that situation, they just go, well, I'm no longer the priority. Obviously, this other person's the priority. I'm going to shift. And that's kind of when it becomes really, really difficult to hold your own space as a caregiver because you can't fill from an empty cup.
Right. And I think that it amplifies our values.
Mm-hmm.
So, and amplifies what values not being honored. So then that's where the caregiver can get really tired or resentful. Can get resentful. So just for
Yeah.
example, I mean, I know that I can be a caregiver. I always say that I'm not such a great caregiver, and I actually know why. Even though my top values family, so I
Mm-hmm.
will be there for my family, absolutely. But my second value is freedom, and when I'm in the caregiver role, I do put myself not second or it's like further down the line. And then
Mm-hmm.
where's my freedom? I give up my freedom to be there for my beloved. And then so then I'm not honoring that value for myself. And then I start getting resentful. So that's where
Yeah.
I really feel the rub. It's like I'm not honoring a value, and yet I am honoring a value, right? It's like the family value and then the freedom value, and
Mm-hmm.
they kind of lock against each other.
Yeah, yeah. They clash and compete, and it's really hard, especially if you're the primary caregiver, how to find that balance because ideally there's somewhere where you can have both your family and your freedom. Um, but it really takes work to work that out in your own life. Because
Mm-hmm.
when you're the patient, you can often get some sort of like medical leave from work, or, there's definitely that spaciousness that is kind of baked into needing to be in treatment. But when you're the caregiver, you have to take time off, you have to readjust your schedule. And that comes with just as many challenges as helping support that patient. So it's a really hard space that is often not seen. I think it's like, but you're fine. It's like they're the patient. You're fine. So like you can still go about your business and do your day-to-day life, but it's like day-to-day life plus everything that you need to do to take care of the other person. Everything that comes with um, being in treatment or even taking care of everything if they do, pass on and everything that comes with that as well. It's a really heavy load.
Right. It is a huge job. And I don't think that we really honor our caregivers as
Mm-hmm.
much. I mean, it feels like, as I'm saying that, it's like we need some kind of acknowledgement for caregivers. And
Yeah.
it's not that they're like second or third, but you're right. Everybody pays attention to the patient, and there's all these support services that are there for the patient. But what about the caregiver? And I know
Mm-hmm.
it's becoming a bigger thing now, and there are more people talking about it. And yet, still, it's like there's probably more caregivers out there than there are patients. I don't know. I'm making it up because there's not just even one caregiver for each patient. There could be
Mm-hmm.
multiple, and they can get burnt out even if
Mm-hmm.
there's like two, three trying to maneuver their lives around the patient so that the patient feels cared for, supported, that they get to where they need to go to when they have the things that make them feel comfortable so that they can heal.
Yeah, yeah. There's always not always. There tends to be more of a team behind one patient versus multiple patients for one caregiver. I mean, that would be a lot to hold as a caregiver in itself. Um, but I also want to just acknowledge the emotional space and that relationship between the patient and caregiver because just naturally we want to be more gentle with the patient, or if they're a thriver, and like everything they're going through, we want to be more gentle with them. And so their caregiver kind of becomes a protector, but this caregiver is also going through this really big emotional shift, and through really big just emotional challenges, just trying to, well, what we would say is they're most likely worrying up
Mm.
to be strong for their patient or for their beloved, um and they don't want to continue to add burden to this experience of treatment, which is so hard in itself. And so we find that a lot of caregivers tend to like bottle up all of their feelings and all of
Yeah.
their thoughts and everything that is overwhelming to them, or what they maybe consider negative, because they don't want to put that on their patient, thriver, beloved, whoever it is. And so they just internalize it, and they're
Yeah.
just like, I can hold this, I can be with it. But what we know is that all emotions need that release. They need to
Yes.
go somewhere.
Yes. Yes. And it's important to know that when the patient is diagnosed, they're on their cancer journey, which we have the book and we have the roadmap, that the caregivers also on the exact same roadmap, but not
Mm-hmm.
at the same pace.
Yeah.
So they could be lagging behind, and they, I mean, I almost kind of, I had this picture in my mind of them like running behind the patient going, you got it? What else do you need? What can I get you? And so they're behind trying to catch the stuff while they're still trying to live their lives. So it's like their lives get put on hold, and they're there for the patient, and they're on this journey. And so I think education is a big part of like understanding, okay, what is my patient going through, my beloved going through, and what am I going through, and what's my
Mm-hmm.
version of it? And then from an emotional standpoint, like you said, it's like, what's the help that I need so I can stay healthy through this? And I'm
Yes.
really talking more the mindset and the emotions, but that's everything.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of times, caregivers, it's not just this one person that they have to take care of. Sometimes they have a whole other huge family behind them that they're taking care of. So I see what you mean when you're like, they're walking behind them. It's like the person who's walking in front of them, they're carrying all of this stuff in their arms. It's a lot to carry in itself. There are all of these things that are just like bobbling. And so sometimes the caregiver's like, okay, I'm carrying my own things, but because I'm behind you and I see you dropping them, let me just pick it up for you and just add it to my own stack of things that I'm also carrying. And we really want to care for those around us, those that we really love. We want to pick up anything they drop and just help them hold it, whether it's their patient or like the rest of their family or their friends. There's so much to hold. Um, and there's so much unconditional love there too, that I definitely don't want to go like unrecognized. Um, but it's not the caregiver's role to only be positive
Yeah.
and only be perfect, holding everything absolutely perfectly. There needs to be someone to pick up things that they drop too, or to lighten their load.
Beautiful. I mean, really, why can't the caregiver have a caregiver? I mean, it's like backup. It's like
Mm-hmm.
this this line of people that support each other so that we can do the stuff that we're being called to do. I love
Mm-hmm.
that idea. That picture was like, okay, here, I can't carry this. Can you do the laundry? Can you like it's just
Yeah.
more,
Mhm.
more. and
Yeah.
and having open dialogue, like having a real conversation where you can say, you know what, I love you so much, but right now I'm tired, so I'm going to enlist this person to help, pick up some of the slack so that I can go take care of myself, so that it's
Mm-hmm.
not a burden on the patient, because the patient's going to go, I don't want to burn everybody out. I understand that, but they too need help, and there's willing people to do that, but having that
Mm-hmm.
conversation of how can we make this work for everybody.
Yeah, yeah. And I think what we call that CJI is designing the relationship, and having that open communication and early communication to be able to communicate your needs, where you may be, how you may want to navigate some trigger situations, having that backup if something comes up, just like having kind of like a backup emergency person who's like ready to go, ready to swoop in, who um, kind of just understands the lay of the land. But designing that relationship will make that so much more seamless, and less burdensome for everyone, right? Because while we don't want to put that on someone else, we still need to be able to communicate what we want and need in those moments, no matter if you're the patient or the caregiver. We need to have that space to put it. I mean, and that's also where a coach becomes really helpful for caregivers as well. We talk about a lot of um, coaching for people who are in treatment or who have gone through cancer and are survivors or thrivers, but for caregivers as well, to have that person, especially when you're like, I just want to scream. There's so much going on, and I'm so overwhelmed, and I don't want to put that on anyone to have
Yes.
to hold, especially someone who it's really going to affect our relationship and our journey together, and maybe put more pressure and weight on what's already here. That's when a coach becomes so, so, so helpful, because they have no they have no like
Agenda.
fight. Yeah, they have no
Yeah.
agenda. They're just trying to like hear you and understand and help you release a lot of those emotions, and release a lot of that like built up tension, because the last thing you want is to boil over and scream at someone who who really doesn't like deserve or need it. And if you're talking to your coach and you're like, I just need to scream, they'd be like, scream, let's do
Right.
it.
Right. It's
Yeah.
it's that wonderful safe space that's just yours. A caregiver should have their own coach, just as the patient and the thriver, the survivor. Everybody should have their own coach, but that is their safe space. I'm not trying to take care of you, coach. You're here for me. And
Mhm.
I just I'm so sad and I can't cry in front of anybody. Or I'm so frustrated and angry. Both of those. And you're, like you said, screaming. Can I just scream? Just letting that energy out in this
Mhm.
safe container where nobody is affected. The client gets the relief and release so that
Mhm.
you can go back and get a grip of your whole self back on your foundation, and then back into your life. Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's you say this all the time, but there's magic in the telling, right? Because I know a lot of people, they think to themselves like, well, I'm just thinking it, so I'm processing it, and like, I know it's here. And there's a really big difference between like knowing where you're at, and saying it out loud and expressing it. Something I love you learn in coach training is that you mirror what someone else is saying. And so when someone comes to a coach, especially a caregiver, and they're speaking and they're just like talking, and they're just talking freely, because there is no agenda, there's no negative repercussions for saying anything to your coach, really. Because everything they're there just in service of you. Everything you give them is something that they're going to reflect back to you, so that way you're able to see it. Not reflect back with like, you scream at me, I scream at you, but reflect back like, you just said phrase and these specific words. Did you notice that? Did you notice that those are the exact words you used? Maybe there's a part of you that didn't intend for it to be so severe, but there's a part of you where that feels really true and needs to let that go in those harshest words. So let's talk about that. Like, let's let that go, because there's something there.
Right.
Yeah.
You're so right. And I get that there's so much pent up stuff because of what we've all said about the plight and the journey of the caregiver. It's like it's pent
Hmm.
up. It's held down. It's pushed away. And here's a place where you're like just able to free yourself of all that you're holding in I
Mm-hmm.
mean, one of the things I also say when I'm in coaching is energetically, let me hold that for you. Your arms are full, your shoulders are weighed down. Energetically, let me hold this. I can give it back to you if you want it, but it's like it frees our clients of some of the burdens, and it's a lot of mental, emotional burdens that they're carrying.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, let me hold that so that you can go back and find your powerful self, so that you can show up in your best self as you're providing this loving care
Mm-hmm.
to your person.
Yes. Okay. So this brings me right back to you can't fill from an empty cup, right?
Yeah.
So many people are like, how do I refill my empty cup? I think that's a question that we don't talk about enough. And that's actually what coaching helps you do. It helps you refill your cup. It helps you clarify all of this jumble that you're in. It helps you kind of sort out. I mean, I don't like to judge what the emotions are, but like the good versus the bad, and be able to figure out what you really want to keep and what would really fill you back up once you get all of this like heavy vibrational stuff off of you. It's like, okay, what's underneath that you really want? And once you know what you really want, then that's what you fill your cup with. It's not really just, oh, quote unquote self-care, just like take a bubble bath and read a book. Like that's not how everyone fills their cup. Like some people it will. I mean, some people, even just the act of like the nothingness and the just doing this for me will be enough, or like reading a book that'll make them cry so that they can release that. Sure, there's stuff there that can be really helpful, but really would it to hit that self-care note, you have to know what you actually want, what you actually need to recharge.
Right. And it does take, okay, so now you're bringing me back to knowing yourself. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
how many of us really know what our top values are? What's really important to us?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, goals or aspirations. It's like, oh, one day I'll get to that. But it's so
Mm-hmm.
important to know what they are. And that's part of what I love about what we do in coaching is we get to the heart of the matter of everything. Like what
Mm-hmm.
matters to you? Let's live by that, not code, but that guideline. That really matters to you. And then who am I? What are my strengths? If I'm not good at the details, I'm not going to be that kind of caregiver. I need to partner with somebody who can do the calling the pharmacy and making sure all the pills and medicines are all, in sync and refilled and blah, blah, blah. I'm
Mm-hmm.
more the let's get you in the car, turn on the tunes and sing while we're driving to your treatment. It's play to our strengths, which
Mm-hmm.
doesn't deplete us, rather than
Mm-hmm.
playing to what we don't do so well. And that takes 3 times as long as
Yeah.
somebody who loves doing that stuff. So it is designing the relationship and also really knowing ourselves.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So we've talked a lot about strengths, values, and your purpose. A lot of times your strengths and values also lend themselves to your purpose. We at the Cancer Journey Institute call that your soul's journey. And when you're stepping into your soul's journey, you get to be your most powerful self. And when you're a caregiver and you know those things, you don't have to let go of any bit of them to show up for who you think you're supposed to be, so you can continue to show up in who you are, just as you're saying, and still be the caregiver that your um, beloved, your patient, your thriver still needs. You get to be all of that and all of you, and it gets to help fuel your journey forward. And I think that's something that we do that's so special, is like help people find their soul's journey, their purpose, and then live from there.
Yes. Yes. And if some of this sounds even helpful or what you need, we have a program that allows you to get a gift session from one of our coaches, which basically is a gifted free session. And so if you want that, please send an email to info@thecancerjourney.com, and Kathy, our community concierge, will take care of you and match you up with somebody that feels right.
Yes, and that session is completely free, so you can really get a sense of what we do and what the experience is with a coach. Now, I will also say that with coaching, it is not one and done. Doing one session, it'll give you a really good taste, but to really grow and learn and dive deeper, it takes more than just one session. It takes just a little bit more time with your coach and time between your sessions to really ingrain what all those, I wouldn't say lessons, but all of those experiences and, those shifts that happen, the shifts of perspective, the trying on something new, all of that happens in between. So definitely recommend trying it out, and getting a sense of what it feels like to have someone that if you want to scream, you can just scream. And if you want to cry, you can just cry. But there's absolutely no judgment, and they're with you every step of the way.
And my last thing that I want to say about that is your coach is always on your side and always about you. So gift yourself this. I mean, I too have my own coach, and it's a godsend. I mean, it's hard enough going through life. Having someone that you know has your back just for you, that you don't have to take care of. Oh my God. Wonderful. Wonderful. All right. With that, let's close up here. Alicia, what is your takeaway and word for right now?
Okay. So my takeaway is that caregivers matter, that you as an individual matter. It's still so easy to put everyone else ahead of yourself, but just for a little bit, I highly, highly suggest taking a moment to be number one. What do you need right now? And so my word is to be selfish.
Yay! Because we hold selfish is not a bad word. I actually say self first. Thank you.
Mm.
Um, my takeaway is that you don't have to do this by yourself. I know that sometimes as a caregiver, my experience anyway is that it's like, I'll do it. I can do it. And I don't have to ask anybody else. But it is so much easier when we play to our strengths and we don't try to do it all by ourselves. So
Yeah.
my word is community.
Yeah. Well, thank you for tuning in. Like we always do, new episodes will be out every Friday. And then next week, we'll explore the patient perspective at the end of our perspective series.
Have a great day. Bye for now.